Hey everybody, this is Tracy here for another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to recap Invite Only Cabo Season 1, Episode 6, which was titled Caught in the Act. So, before we get started with this episode, there is a lot going on with reality TV where they are like pushing the line. We have the whole date rape discussion on the table, where people are saying that, they were too drunk to know what they were doing, that, he touched me inappropriately and, now I'm going to sue because I feel like that was sexual assault and all this stuff. And so we have the story, in the headlines, well, the reality TV headlines, with the characters from the contestants from Bachelor in Paradise. And then here we have Invite Cabo tonight, and they're sort of like teetering on that line of inappropriateness and making light of the whole situation. And so I don't know if the goal is to change the conception or the perception of people's views about what it means to be, date raped or too drunk to consent, because here we have Emily and Agu once again with their shenanigans talking about, they were too drunk to realize what they were doing. And I think it just highlights the whole thing when we have people, like with the Bill Cosby case, where women are coming back 30 years later saying, oh, this happened and I was raped or sexually assaulted. But on this show, you got Emily saying, she was drunk and she wished people would forget about it, and she's not seeing it as any type of sexual assault towards her. She's just basically saying, I was drunk, I don't remember what happened, but she's not trying to hold Agu accountable. But what would happen if she seriously liked Agu and then he, turned down her advances in the future? Would she then get angry and come back and say, okay, well, this happened? And I know it's a reality TV show and they've probably set all this up and they've signed contracts that they're not going to sue each other and that type of thing. But I just wanted to point out that the behavior that's being displayed on this show is what happens in these he said, she said cases that we're seeing coming forth. And people are saying, well, you should always believe the woman and she's violated and he should have known better. And so I just wonder if the whole, reality TV thing is just trying to highlight what a gray area it really is. And so guys, let me know what you think about that in the comments. And also I did a video over the weekend where I actually talk about the Bill Cosby trial and some of these other things that we're talking about as far as, the discussion on rape. So check it out and I will put the link below. So let's move on to last night's episode. So, the trip, they keep saying that, this is a once in a lifetime trip and, how happy they are to be there. But I'm thinking, we done had AJ Johnson show up. We've had Joseph show up, who's Emily's boyfriend. And then next week, looks like another guest is going to show up. So how much of a once-in-a-lifetime trip is it if people could just hop on planes and fly over and stay for 12 hours and then roll out and go on back home? When I think of a once-in-a-lifetime trip, I'm thinking about we going to some exotic place far, far, far away. We're going to enjoy the scenery. We're going to do things other than going to the beach, going to the bar, getting drunk, and then coming back to the house fighting. To me, that's not a once-in-a-lifetime trip. That could be any weekend getaway with a bunch of messy people. So I'm going to need them to stop talking about this is a chance of a lifetime unless they are people that never go anywhere and never get to do anything. And then in that case, it may be a chance of a lifetime. So the show picks up, where they were at dinner with Emily's boyfriend. It was Emily's birthday and her boyfriend Joseph showed up, and so they're like talking about how nervous they were and they didn't know how whether or not Agu was going to say anything to Joseph, because you can remember he was outside smoking a cigar with Joseph, and so they're outside talking, and then they're back inside with the rest of the people, and they're trying to figure out, what's going on. So then Emily declares that, she's strapping on her chastity belt for the remainder of the trip, and she ain't gonna be having sex with nobody or hunching up on nobody. But we will soon learn that declaration didn't last very long. So when they get back to the house, Larry decides to give Emily and Joseph the penthouse suite, which is his bedroom, for them to spend the night, and then he's going to sleep on the sofa. And then when they get up the next day, Joseph comes down and he cooks breakfast for everybody. Well, not for everybody. I think it was him, Emily, Larry, and Bianca, who actually ended up eating the breakfast. But anyway, before he rolled out, he did cook breakfast for them. And he left, and it was just, he came in just to go to dinner with her, and then he left, which I guess they just need to add some kind of action to, to set up these other plots that are going to take place down the line. So then Malaku and Jermane, they decide to ditch the house and go to the beach because they're pretty much fed up with the drama of the trip. They're sick of hearing Agu's name because he's all over the place. And then they say they're tired of Larry running around talking about babe, 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 just like the rest of us. And then they're wanting to know, like, Jermane seems to be really hurt and upset that Larry has this special person in his life that he's never met. And I guess Jermane has known Larry the longest, so he's really feeling some kind of way. And Malaku, I guess, knows who the person is or thinks he knows who the person is. But they both agree that once Bianca finds out who that person is, and we know she ain't going to stop until she finds out, that she is going to flip her lid. So after Joseph left, Bianca and Larry were sitting at the breakfast table together. And they are so messy. They deserve each other. So they're talking about, how awkward it was having Joseph there and knowing, a secret that they can't share. And then Bianca's like, well, I know exactly how he feels because, Larry has this other person in his life that I know nothing about. So I sympathize with Joseph because I feel like I'm in his shoes, and I'm just wondering, if Larry's ever going to say anything. I'm just like, girl, bye. Like, Larry ain't thinking about you. He's just leading you on. And if you really was the woman that you want to be, the minute they told you about the other person, you would have went to Larry and confronted him about that person. So we're not even trying to sympathize with you, Bianca. So later on that night, the crew decide to go to dinner, and they go to this, I think it was a Japanese restaurant because they had sushi and all this stuff. So Agu is giving Kamani his all. He's still carrying her on his back, giving her piggyback rides upstairs and downstairs. She's just loving the attention. And Kamani, she feels that they are growing and that there is a potential, for a love connection. So they get to the restaurant and order, a bunch of hors d'oeuvres and everything. And so Kamani, she tries something that was on Agu's plate. And I guess that kind of like set Miss Emily off because then she picked up like this big piece of sushi with the chopsticks, and then she asked Agu to try it. But at the same time as she's saying try it, she damn near shoving it into his mouth. And so he bites off a piece of it, and then she eats the rest of it. And then Agu is sitting there like, what the hell just happened? And he really needs to learn how to put his foot down with Emily and tell her to knock it off. So, of course, this got Miss Kamani up in her feathers, and she was like spitting bullets at this point. And so Larry tries to change the subject, to Joseph and Agu going out, for the cigar. And then Kamani says, here we go. And Emily starts talking about, how she knew Agu first, and she's known, Agu longer than Kamani, and she doesn't know why Kamani is all in her feelings. And I'm like, girl, you met Agu at the airport when y'all arrived in Cabo because y'all had to ride in the same van together. And then Kamani pointed out that, excuse me, but the conversation was not about who knew Agu the longest. The conversation was about what happened last night at dinner. Then Emily snaps back, which only fuels Kamani's fire, as she lets her know that, she's never gone on a trip before and ended up screwing one of the people on the trip. And then Larry, he goes after Agu and says that, he's never been on a trip and slept with two people that that were on the trip, especially considering that they're all in the same house together. So yeah, Goo is being real messy and he just needs to get his hormones under control. Then we know Kamani can go to 10 real quick. She tells Emily, that she needs to lower her voice. That's her favorite line, when things start getting heated, is I'm gonna need you to bring it down a few notches. So Emily, you really need to stop talking about, you were too drunk and didn't know what you were doing, because everybody at the table is like tired of the excuses and you saying that you were too drunk and didn't understand what was going on. So Kamani calls BS and calls a thing because Emily was just horny and freaky and went upstairs and crawled into bed because she had then decided from the first moment she laid eyes on the Goo that she wanted to get a piece of him. Then Kamani told Emily that she obviously sucked a Goo's man sword. It's like, well, that wasn't the word she used, but the word she used was you sucked his dick. And I was just like, well, just say it how you mean it, Kamani. And then Jermane, he gets to the point where he's like, I am so over this. I can't take it anymore. So he gets up from the table and he goes outside. He's like spinning around like, when does it end? So Malaku goes out and, tries to comfort him, and, like they're both like, this is so crazy, and it's probably bothering them so much because they don't have a love interest in the house. So watching all this unfold is probably really getting on their nerves. So then they go back inside and Emily says that a Goo is like family to her, and Kamani lets her know, well, for your information, you don't screw your brother. It's like, oh my God, Emily, why didn't you get on that plane and fly back home with your man? Because this thing is just getting out of hand. So, of course, this pisses Emily off, and she jumps up from the table and decides she's had enough and she wants to leave. She wants to go back to the house. So this helpful obviously had a few drinks that we didn't see. She goes, and it was like the whole front of the restaurant was glass. Emily walked up there and just like shoved the door, but the door, so you have double doors and the one side is clicked and locked down into the cement so that you can't open it, and then they have to like lift it up to open both doors. Well, honey, Emily hit that door so hard that it flew open, knocked the thing off the hinge or something, and then she turned around and was like, oh, I'm sorry, and went back in. So everybody was looking like, okay, now we got to leave the restaurant because this girl done totally embarrassed us. So when they were walking out, they apologized to the restaurant people, for breaking the door. And I think it was Bianca said, we're going to have to pay for that. It was just like, oh my God. So instead of taking Miss Emily on home, like she said she wanted to go back to the house, they decide to go to a bar and go drinking and dancing. So now we got alcohol on top of alcohol. And then a Goo and Kamani, they all in love and into each other. And so Emily's getting kind of pissed off, because she already drinking. And then I think she started drinking some more. And at one point, she got up and left the club and went and got into the SUV, I guess, to go to sleep. So back at the club, a Goo and Kamani, they all hunching and rubbing and touching and feeling and dancing on each other. So a Goo tried to kiss Kamani, and Kamani turned her head. So now he's feeling sexually frustrated because he's like, Kamani gonna let him cuddle her, carry her up and down them stairs, hold her hand, and be her companion, but he can't even give a kiss, and some gonna have to give. Then they realize that Emily is missing, and so Larry's like, okay, well, we need to go see about Emily and leave. And they go out to the two SUVs, so they find Emily and she's stretched out on the back seat. Now, I don't know how a Goo ended up in the SUV with Bianca and Larry and Emily. And he said something about Kamani had gone to the bathroom, which meant that Kamani had to get in the SUV with Jermane and Malaku. So they're on their way back and they're bickering about who's going to sit in the back with Emily. Because I think at first, a Goo was sitting in one of the seats, and then Larry was sitting in the seat, and Bianca was in the back with Emily, but then she was annoyed because Emily was laid out across the seat and she couldn't sit back. So then a Goo gave Bianca his seat, and then he was sitting like on the console between the two front seats, but of course he couldn't sit there because now you're blocking the cameras and all this stuff, and plus it's not safe. So then he says, well, I'll get in the back with Emily and I'll wake her up and make her move over. So they get in the back, and Emily like had her back to the, I think think she had her back to the seat that Larry was sitting in. So it was just very awkward. So they get to talking and joking, and then Agu, I think Emily said that she hurt herself and she was in pain. So then Agu said, yeah, I'm in pain too because my balls are full and I believe I got blue balls. So, they started laughing and joking around, and Bianca was taking pictures, and and they were showing them to the people in the other car and everything. And so somehow Emily turned around and ended up laying her head in Agu's lap, but she had her legs kind of like up, and he had his arm on the back of the seat, and then he started dozing off, because he'd been drinking and everything. He dozes off, his hand slides down, goes down Emily's dress. And so I don't know if Bianca was still taking the pictures or if she was recording what was going on in the back seat. But then all of a sudden, she's like, oh my God, you put your hand down her dress. And then Agu started laughing. I think she showed him the video or the picture or whatever she had taken. And then Agu was like, no, I didn't get that far yet. They started making a really big issue out of it. And then Emily, she's starting to get upset and talking about, being drunk again. And she says that she doesn't recall feeling Agu's hand between her legs. And Larry is saying that, Agu is ruining friendships. He has Emily and Kamani fighting with each other, and then Kamani deserves better. And Agu is basically sitting in the back because he's drunk and he don't know what's going on, and he's feeling like a kid, who's being reprimanded by his parents. And they get to the house, and Kamani asks Agu, how did the ride go? Because they were like turning around looking, and they could see, what was going on in the SUV. And she was telling him, like, you were looking like really panicked, like what the hell's going on? And then Agu was like, well, you really don't want to know what happened in that vehicle. So then the following morning, the gang decides, they're going to go to the beach, to kind of relax and unwind, but Kamani is like in such a good mood that she decides that she's going to color Emily's hair, touch up her roots. And they have, this girl talk, and they're, pretty much discussing, the things that were said the night before, and, just having a girl talk, kind of mending fences and deciding that they're not going to keep fighting over Agu anymore. And Emily starts talking, and she alludes to what happened in the van. So then Kamani's like, well, what happened? But then Emily decided that she really needed to get her roots done, so she wasn't going to tell the whole story to Kamani. Kamani would have to figure it out on her own because she needed to get her hair done. So Bianca is still pushing that it was more than, what it was, and insisting that Agu needs to tell Kamani before she finds out. And I'm thinking, okay, how's she gonna find out? Because the only people that know what happened were the people that was in the vehicle, and we know Agu wasn't gonna say anything, and Emily's so silly, she probably wouldn't have said anything. So that meant that either Bianca or Larry had to tell what happened in the van, and of course they did, because she couldn't wait to tell Jermane and Maliku, what happened. And so of course now they all looking at Agu funny, and so as him and Kamani are interacting with each other, they're rolling their eyes and being judgmental. So then Bianca and Larry, messy, they push Agu up to telling Kamani what happened. And so Agu wanted to wait till the following day or either later that night, because he said he didn't want to ruin everybody's day. Everybody was in such a good mood, but then they were insisting, you need to tell her now, And then at the beach, Bianca, jealous ass, starts stirring the pot. And I'm thinking that she's probably so miserable because Larry has someone else, and now she doesn't want anybody else to be happy since she is not going to get the man that she wanted. While Agu and Larry were talking, Larry was telling Agu how to tell Kamani what happened, because remember, Agu was drunk and he really doesn't remember, because he was like, okay, I want to tell her, but what do I tell her? And then Larry tells him, oh, well, just tell her, you were in the back seat and she had her head in your lap and your hand, went down her dress. So then they get to the beach, and like I said, everybody's having a good time, and Kamani and Agu, they're off to the side and they're oiling each other down. I guess it was sunscreen or something, but it was very oily and slick and shiny looking. And then everybody just keeps poking and prodding and poking, trying to push him up to tell, Kamani what happened. So he finally decides, with the vultures looking, and all in his business, that he needs to just go ahead and get it over with. So I guess he couldn't, like I said, he couldn't explain what happened because he didn't remember what happened. So he goes with Larry's story, which was basically her head was in my lap and I put my hand down her dress. And of course, Kamani flips out and stumps off, and she's embarrassed and humiliated and being overly dramatic. And I'm thinking, Agu, what you should have said was, Emily was stretched out in the back seat. The only way you could get comfortable was if she put her head in your lap, which you let her do, and then explain that your arm was on the back of the seat, but then you drifted off and hit a bump. The vehicle hit a bump, or the movement of the vehicle caused your hand to fall down, and you immediately woke up when you realized what was going on, and you moved her hand. It was a total mistake, and it was nothing to it, but you just felt like your relationship was progressing, and you wanted her to know, and you wanted it to come from you. But of course, that would have been too much like right, and too much of an apology and a realistic thing that happened. So now Kamani stumps off because she's thinking that, Goo is fooling around with Emily again, and that he wanted to put his hand down her dress and all this other crap. And Kamani reacted like she and Agu had been in a relationship for years and talking about getting married, and she suddenly found out that he had a side chick. And I'm thinking, if you had gone ahead and gave that man a kiss, he wouldn't even be pressed for Emily or thinking about Emily. But you just been all standoffish and trying to be safe and trying to, protect your heart, that you just exposed him, exposed his weaknesses that you already know that he has, because he told you that when he gets drunk, he can't control himself. But you decided to continue on with that situation. So the rest of the show was dealing with Kamani and her overreaction. I mean, she's around there crying, talking about she feels humiliated and embarrassed, and then they get back to the house and Kamani doesn't want to be in the room with Emily anymore, so they decide that Emily and Bianca are going to switch rooms, and of course Bianca is sharing the room with Agu. And I'm like, ooh, y'all so messy. But Emily was packing them bags like Speedy Gonzalez, like she couldn't wait to get into that room with Agu to see what was going to happen later on that night. And I'm thinking, Agu, you a fool for allowing her to come in that room. And if you had no say-so over it, you should have grabbed your pillow and a blanket and made you a bed downstairs on that sofa, because there is no way in hell I would stay in that room with Emily. But he did go downstairs later that night, to try and talk to Kamani, but, she wasn't having it and told him to get lost. And I'm thinking, poor Agu, you need to get your drinking under control, learn to control your sex drive like real men do when they meet somebody that they really want to be in a relationship with. And please put the cigarettes down, because that is such a turnoff. And if I had known that he was a smoker earlier in the series, his sexy level would have dropped significantly, and I wouldn't be trying to go to bat for Agu, because that is just can't do the cigarette smoking. But that was pretty much it, guys. Next week I think we're going to learn who the mystery person is, and how Bianca is going to react. And it looked like it was a female, so let's hope it was a female. But you guys go ahead and let me know what you thought. Leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I will talk to you guys later, and I hope everyone has a wonderfully blessed week. Take care. Bye-bye.